School funding in Indiana is a complex but critical system that affects every student, teacher, and taxpayer in our community. This video breaks down how EVSC receives, organizes, and allocates funds to provide quality education while being responsible stewards of public money. The EVSC budget relies on three main sources of income: state funds, local property taxes, and federal grants, with state funds making up approximately 65% of the budget, local property taxes contributing around 30%, and federal grants providing the remaining 5%. State funding makes up the largest portion of EVSC's budget, approximately 65% of total funding. The state sends money based on how many students EVSC has, what's called average daily membership. Think of ADM as a head count. More students mean more funding. In addition to a base amount per student, Indiana uses a complexity grant to give extra support for students who need it most. This grant is calculated by identifying at-risk students, specifically those in foster care or families on government assistance programs like SNAP or TANF. The state then determines each district's complexity index based on the concentration of these at-risk students, which drives how much additional funding a district receives. In 2024, the overall state funding per student in the EVSC averaged around $8,500. Local funding makes up about 30% of EVSC's revenue and comes primarily from Vanderburgh County property taxes. For example, a home whose net assessed valuation is $125,000 generates approximately $1,075 in yearly school funding. Our last main income source is federal funding. This accounts for around 5% of EVSC's budget. These dollars support programs like Title I and special education services. Now, let's look at how these dollars are organized into specific funds. The Education Fund, our largest fund, is funded entirely by the state of Indiana. This fund pays for classroom expenses, primarily teacher salaries and some instructional materials. The EVSC spends 97% of this fund on salaries. The Operations Fund, funded primarily by local property taxes, is around 30% of our total budget. This fund covers things like utilities, transportation, maintenance, technology, and non-teaching staff. Since 2019, state regulations require us to transfer expenses from the Education Fund to the Operations Fund. For EVSC, this means we have about $40 million in expenses required to transfer. However, we only move $22 million in revenue, allowing more money to be available for teacher salaries. Finally, we have two smaller funds. The debt service funds, accounting for around 9% of our budget, are funds dedicated to paying off our loans and bonds for major construction projects and renovations. Our rainy day fund is exactly what it sounds like: EVSC's savings account for emergencies or unexpected expenses. We are only able to transfer money to this fund through dedicated efficiencies, resulting in cost savings in the Operations Fund. Let's bring all these pieces together. EVSC manages its finances through four main funds, each with specific funding sources. The Education Fund pays for teacher salaries and classroom expenses and is funded primarily by state dollars through Indiana's sales and income taxes. The Operations Fund covers maintenance, transportation, utilities, and capital projects and receives funding primarily from Vanderburgh County property taxes, with some strategic transfers from the Education Fund. The debt service funds handle payments on bonds for building projects and renovations and are funded exclusively through local property taxes. The Rainy Day Fund serves as our savings account for emergencies and unexpected needs and grows through operational efficiencies. Understanding school funding means recognizing how these different funds are connected and constrained in ways that affect the entire system. Even if the Education Fund has a surplus, those dollars can't be used to fix a leaky school roof or replace worn bus tires due to strict spending rules. Meanwhile, the Operations Fund faces its own set of limitations. Indiana limits how much schools can collect from property taxes. For example, a homeowner can't contribute more than 1% of its value to local government, including schools. This circuit breaker protects taxpayers but limits school districts' ability to address rising fuel costs, update technology, or maintain aging facilities. When one fund faces pressure, it ripples through the entire system. Rising transportation costs might mean less money for building maintenance. Property tax caps might force difficult choices between updating classroom technology or repairing facility infrastructure. These interconnected constraints require Indiana districts to constantly balance immediate needs against long-term investments in our students' education. Each dollar has a specific purpose, and EVSC works diligently to maximize every cent for the benefit of our students while navigating the complex financial landscape of school funding in Indiana.